Morning everyone. What we had today? Thursday, gosh. In the middle of Storm Benjamin. So, got a couple of days of this. High winds, lots of rain. 7:33. Just trying to catch up with stuff. I know a few of you have asked, so I thought I'd fill you in. We had the doc's visit yesterday. Everything is obviously not good, but everything is good as far as like count and everything, blood count, things like that. Still ticking along. Positive mindset, keeping it going. Not going to let it beat me. We have a VW Charan coming in today. It's having a full head unit swap, integration, and we've got an infotainment lead, which is basically a box of tricks which allows the retention of all the factory systems, steering controls, data, display, car settings, reverse camera if it's got one, parking sensors if it's got them. So we'll run through that today in depth because that's quite a good one. It's always a question that customers ask, is when you get a car with everything integrated into the radio and you change the radio, what happens with all the stuff? So we're going to do a vid on that today and try and get back into the swing of things. Hope you like the t-shirts and the hoodies coming. If you want to support, pick one up. I'm probably going to do 45 for the t-shirts and 65 for the hoodies. All colours available, obviously blacks and whites we've got quite a bit of, because it seems to be like the most common theme. But if you like a decal, support the vids, then buy some merch. Maybe some more coming. If you've got any ideas for any stuff, get it in the comment section if you want to see something done. I will try. That's all we can do, right? Off to the shop, get a coffee, see you in a bit.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Morning everyone. Right, Charan is in. It is a 13 reg. Not going to show you the registration obviously, but looks like this. Have we zoomed in? No. Head unit looks like that. He wants a USB putting up here for a hard drive, so he's got music up there. So obviously we need to take out this section of the dash. So this bit out, that bit out. Screws at the top, take this out, take that out. Microphone obviously going to go in the center. DAB aerial, probably do a adapter on this thing. Has it got? Yeah, let's probably do a VW adapter on this thing for the DAB. We're going in with an AVHZ 3200 DAB and the info kit. So what I'll do is I'll get this all apart and I'll get all the info stuff ready, and then we can do a little discussion on what's what and how this thing works. From factory. Straighten up the camera because we're a bit pissed at the minute. There we go. So from factory, let's grab the keys. So obviously we get information here on the dash and there on the radio. So if I turn on the car, we've got steering controls as normal. We have bits and bobs on the dash, some information here. But what we basically get is the volume button doesn't work. That's good. And there we go, a bit of a delay. So if I go reverse, I get like this parking sensor image up here. And this is basically showing me a graphic of what's happening with the car. So we're going to keep all of that by putting in the info lead, which then transfers it actually onto the front of this as a reverse camera style. And you can then change the car settings by kind of pressing and holding the mic button for 3, 4, 5 seconds I think it is, and then it converts up here to vehicle settings, and then you go through the motions on the steering control harness to change stuff actually with the car. So it's a way of keeping some original integration. So obviously first check that we got no CD in there. We haven't. Turn that off, turn this off, let's take it apart and I'll come back to you in a mo. See you in a bit. then everyone, we are about ready for our VW kit. So we're going to use a couple of things. This is the infotainment adapter, as you can see here. We've got a junction box, wiring harness, and a camera lead. Now this has the option of ins and outs on factory cameras or aftermarket cameras. Quad lock to ISO. We have reverse if we need to, speed pulse if we need to, parking brake if we need to, and mute wire, which is the grey, if we need to. We have a list of instructions. Now this instruction is to do with the dip switches on the box there. Let me just get that in the light. These dip switches are just here. So you can actually set different things like types of unit, you can do reverse camera standard or aftermarket, you can do security protocols. There's lots of different things you can do with this, and it's all written in the instructions there. So what we're going to do is we work backwards. So we're going to work from the head unit into the car, and then as soon as you power up the CAN bus box, it then learns what vehicle it's connected to. Don't do it the other way around because your steering controls don't work. We're going to do the handbrake bypass on the green cable, so we're going to solder that to the black as normal. We've got an aerial adapter to go from the DAB onto an SMB. So that one goes onto there. We will have, for now I'm just going to plug it in, but I'm not going to power it up just yet until we've made our connections, and I'll show you what's what. That onto there, and we've got our camera lead onto our box. Now this thing does have an in and an out, and what that basically means is when you plug your camera connection into your box, which goes there, you basically have this wire with the male, it's got a willy, this wire with the male RCA or phono, that's the input into the reverse camera on the stereo, and then that would be, if you were, your reverse camera input from the actual car. So you can have the reverse camera coming in and then the reverse camera coming out. But what this also does is when you connect it to the purple to tell the stereo to look for a reverse camera, this thing also generates the CAN information from the car in a picture form, which will then show through the picture on the stereo. Very cool. So what we are going to do, we're going to get our stereo wires sorted out. So we got our power ISO, our speaker ISO. Depending on where you get your leads from, some of these teeth that hold in the ISOs are a bit slack. So make sure, see that? If you give it a tug, if it comes apart, they're not connected in properly. They're not quite in far enough that they actually take. Now, a little tip is grabbing a screwdriver or some kind of terminal and just push them down, and as you push them down, the tooth on the side will lift up slightly and it will grab onto the bit that it's supposed to be plugged into. But as these things get mass produced, they get a bit slack and the fitment is just slightly out. Now, I don't know whether you can see that, but the teeth have actually moved away from the ISO. Now that's, oh, there we go, that's making a proper connection now, just on the top here. Just make sure I'm not too bright. There we go. Is that better? You can see the teeth have lifted. Right. So we need to connect from the Pioneer stereo. We need to do our purple, our reverse trigger, because that's going to force the unit to look for the reverse camera, and or whether that reverse camera is a camera or whether it is the car settings. Yes, you can use bullets if you want to. Obviously I'm a big fan of soldering, so I'm actually going to cut off the plug and we are going to go straight purple to purple. Now this box will emit basically like a 12-volt feed down this purple wire once the CAN is selected into reverse, or you tell it to look for the car signal. To show a picture, we are going to need our VW fascia. We are going to need a FACRA to DIN aerial booster. So this is going to go in the white, and make sure you put down your security tab so it doesn't fall out. Again, we have a speed connector here that can go into the ISO, that little badger there, but I am going to cut that off. and we are going to solder straight into the blue. Good practice. So we are going to go blue stripe, which is peak on, aerial output, amp turn on. That's going to turn on the aerial booster. Factored in. And we don't need the wiring harness, we do need the cage straps. I'm going to give you a little tip, especially with this kit, because it's always the case of when you're putting in a radio with separate tabs on the side to a separate fascia, how do you get it lined up perfectly instead of trial and error of 50 million times into the head unit. So it's very simple. First off, we're going to take off Pioneer's sticky label because I bloody hate these things. I'll clean that up in a minute. But we get your fascia, put it on the unit. Right. So your radio is technically exactly where you want it, poking through the hole. Flip the thing upside down and leave the radio resting in the fascia. Then you get your stereo harness, your stereo cage, and just leave it rested on the side. And then once that's in that location, we then get our driver. I use a driver for speed. You don't necessarily need to, but obviously it's not a wheel nut, so don't gun the absolute bejesus out of it. It doesn't need to have 150 Newton meters of torque. We get our little screws, and then as our cup is sitting into the fascia, we can go into the side of the radio with our screws. Put one in, as you heard, very gently. We don't need to ugga-dugga. Spin it round. And we do the other side with it still in the fascia frame. Obviously make sure it's not moved. Make sure everything's nice and tight. Another screw. One more for good luck. There we go. Now, as we've now got the radio like this, yes, it's upside down. We've got the radio in our fascia and our cage adapters on the sides. We know the fitment is perfect because this now lines up completely. Now when you take that off, you've got exactly the right depth between the bracket and the fascia, so that when that goes in the dash, we know that our trim ring will go perfectly over it and mount to the same piece and screw into the same piece. So that's that. Right, so the radio is now prepped. We've got our power, we've got our boxes, so let's practice what we need to do. Practice preach. So we take out the ISO, so we have some soldering to do. We're going to get our infotainment adapter and we're going to put that in that little hole there, the power harness. And then I need to get, one second, next to we need a C2 multi-lead, just like that. Now this is going to provide steering control information from our box of tricks to the radio. Obviously we're doing this without the quad lock plugged in. But on the back of the C2 lead, you've got this little loop of cables here. Now in the instructions it tells you which kind of plug works with what kind of car. Now we are going to need all of them for this. Pioneer is just a straight leave alone and use the 3.5mm jack. But obviously on different cars you can have key 1 if it's Kenwood, but then you need to change these loops or cut these loops, remove those loops, and they are obviously purple, green and orange depending on the type of unit. But with the Pioneer we don't need to, so that just goes straight into our little connector, and then that 3.5mm jack will go straight into our aux. Now the only thing we need to check is on the VW adapter, gives you a list of vehicles that this is accepted into. We need to check the dip switch settings. So we don't have a camera setting, we don't have a camera connected, sorry, but we do have parking assist, and you can change some of this in the actual menu as well. But obviously the first thing, Jody, the first thing we need to do is dip switches, but you can see there is Pioneer is on, the rest of them are off. So number 1 for Pioneer head unit is on, the rest of them are off. So we get a quick little look at the settings, and at the minute they are all off. So I'm just going to grab my kniff, go to dip switch 1, push it down, satisfying. So that's on. Now that's ready for a Pioneer stereo. So the next thing we need to do is all our soldering connections. So let's do that first, and then we can get our head unit plugged in, and I will show you the setup on that. One thing to note is the edges of this cage are very sharp, so be careful where you lie it around a stereo system, where you lie it around a dashboard system in a car, because they will do damage and scratch. So yellow cable input, which is our phono, that's going to go in our brown for the Pioneer, that's our camera in. We have, let's move them out of the way a minute, we have our Pioneer harness, which is going to go in the Pioneer hole. We have our steering control harness, which is hiding. There he is. The steering control harness is going to go in the right one. Just be careful, because the auxiliary is a 3.5mm jack as well. There was a few occasions in the past where I caught somebody else doing that, putting the steering control harness in an auxiliary hole, and then it didn't work, and rather than testing we went and removed the radio to find a simple mistake, not checked. So 2.5mm jack for the microphone. Now on a Pioneer the aux is down here, steering control harness is actually next to the microphone. Then we're going to go USB, which we've made a hole in our top pocket. That's going to go in the top, in there, and then the only thing left to do then is the aerials. We've got one for digital aerial, which is underneath the camera feed here, and one for the FM aerial, which is, this is arse about face, isn't it? Let's do a bit of wire. Have a think about which way your cables go round, because it makes it harder if everything is tied up. Does that make sense? If like you've got things around the wrong way and everything's getting trapped like this, then just take a second to unplug it, move it around the right side and then plug it back in, because it makes putting the cables in the dash a little bit easier. So aerial harness, we've got that one there, that's going to go over here, so that probably wants to go underneath, out the way, over there. And then the last thing to do is our digital aerial, which is going to go in there. Right, I'm going to get these connections soldered up, and then I will come back to you when we are ready to turn it on. See you in a bit. Right everyone, we have made our solder connections, so we are just going to throw a bit of PVC tape on them, cover them up. I tend to go over them twice, just to make sure they take well and covered. We've discussed before the whole sort of heat shrink and solder. I like tape, because you can actually feel any sharp edges coming out. One thing I didn't discuss, which we will now, is the little yellow wire that's sticking up in the air. It does say on it, telephone mute. So that is reactive to an earth, okay? This one here to my left, with the white label. That one is reactive to an earth. Now we have got lots of sharp metal behind the dash, so I always like to put a bit of tape on the end of it, because if that suddenly starts grounding out on anything, or any part of the radio or the cage, your radio will go silent. And it'll be quite frustrating if you have to drive to fix someone's radio and knowing that this was just touching a metal object. So put a bit of tape around it. So check our connections. We've got our ISO on, we've got our radio in, we've got our camera feed, we've got our digital aerial, we've got our auxiliary, we've got our FM, we've got our microphone, we've got our USB. So everything is in and ready to go. So the last thing we need to do is get our power and plug it into the quad lock. So when that goes in, let's just tuck that in the dash for a second. So I just want to show you everything in and ready to go. We can worry about the neatness later. Okay, so just turn this down. Right, I'll grab you and a key. So we've made our connections. Our microphone is at the top up there. Obviously we're using a digital aerial adapter, so we've not got one on the window. So we turn our key on, and the radio, let's just turn off the glare, there we go, the radio comes to life. So does the dash camera. So select your program, obviously we're English, speaker mode standard, digital aerial power, press OK. We're going to go on DAB first, let that set up. Demo mode is still on. So just turn that down. We'll just make sure steering controls. Ooh. Steering controls are doing something else, which usually means the plug is not in all the way. Let's have a look. There we go. It was out by about 2 mil. That's a little tip. If your steering controls operate but they do something different, it's usually because the jack is not sent home all the way. It must have just pulled out as I was pushing the cabling in. There we go. So now the steering controls are doing what they should be doing. Now, we go on to our settings up here in the top, and we're going to do a few things. First off, we're going to the screwdriver and the spanner. We're going to do camera setting is going to be on, and its polarity is going to be battery, which means the unit is looking for a positive signal on that purple wire to change to the camera. We're going to have guidelines off because we're not using it for a reverse camera, we are using it for the infotainment adapter. And we scroll down, safe mode we're going to turn off, and demo mode we're going to turn off. Scroll down, make sure our driving position over here in the UK is set to the right side, which is the right side. Shut up. We can do picture, colour if we want to, so let's go down to screen, background. I tend to go over to the left. I like this little EQ that runs in the background. The theme is going to be red and white, so we can do illumination, theme red, illumination white, much like the VW Dash. Now, I'm in the wrong seat because I need to be over there, but let me show you this. So I can actually go press the microphone button, and it says caution, objects may be reversed. So obviously now we're in the reverse camera menu technically, but would be the infotainment adapter. So press and hold the microphone button for 3 or 5 seconds, and then we get to this. Now on the steering control harness itself, I'll figure out which one it is, you'll have one button will be up and down, the other button will be your decisions, or is it this one over here? Let's go. There we go. So left and right on the steering control is your choice, up and down, and then microphone will be like your enter button. So as I go, let me zoom out a bit, there we go. So if I go down, look, and then I can go back up, go down. So I can change vehicle settings. So I can go into this one here, and I've got, see, driver position. I'm going to change that to be right. There you go, look, so you can move the steering wheel around on the screen. So I can select right, and then we can go back down to back, press OK, and then I've got preferences. It takes a while to figure this out because you're kind of going the wrong way with your buttons. Preferences, parking assist version. I can actually change the parking version. I can change the colours. Look. So we'll go with that one. Camera connected, no. Now, if you're using an infotainment adapter with parking sensors and a camera, here, when you put camera connected, yes, you will also change the priority of what is viewed first to being the camera first and parking sensors second, not the other way around. And we go back to backup and then down to back. So this will now take us back to the Pioneer menu. We'll go back to being normal steering controls, but now I'm gonna have to go around the other side. Bear with me a minute. Numbnut sat on the wrong side to show you this, didn't he? Someone's murdering a chipmunk. Right, so if I put my foot on the brake and if I now go reverse, Now that changes, and now I get the original VW parking sensors actually on the screen. So you can see I'm too close to the sub boxes ahead, but now I've got actual VW car, actual parking sensors from the VW. And if I go park, then the screen will change back to being a Pioneer, and we're back to normal. And that is what you use the infotainment adapter for. So I'm going to neaten up the cabling, secure the box at the back, put the dash in, get it back together, and I'll come back to you in a moment. Right then everyone, let's just neat this down. So there we go, this one's done. I'm sure I'm not zoomed in, why are we so close? Why are we so close? Anyway, so here we are, Pioneer in the dash. So foot on the brake, steering controls obviously are still working. Foot on the brake, press and hold, and then I can get to the car menu. Press and hold, come back out of it, and then if I go reverse, I get the car parking graphic. So as I handbrake, as I drop the handbrake off, and as I move away from the boxes, we still get the beeping. Obviously now we have the interaction of factory systems on the Pioneer. How cool, right? And a little technical lesson on infotainment adapters and why they're so cool. Right, I'm going to get this one out, get a customer a call, see you in a bit. Right then everyone, the storm has definitely set in, that's for sure. Let me just turn that down. Oof. Yeah, wind's picked up, rain is hammering down. We'll see how this one fares out, but that's it for today. It's getting dark, I'm on my way home. Got some t-shirts and hoodies to print and a video to cut up for you lot. See you tomorrow, maybe, depends.